Okay.
3, 2, 1, 5:47. Go ahead.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we are joined by someone very familiar to Bills fans, Joe Buscaglia. I had the privilege of some personal interaction working with him when I was with the team as he traveled with the team.
And Don, I'm going to interrupt you here.
Yeah.
Normally, we have him run down the accomplishments and what they're doing now. Joe, in our research,
got a lot going on.
You're kind of a jack of all trades here. Maybe you could just tell people where you are now, where to find you, and then we'll go from there.
I'm great with that.
Yeah, I'm a little all over the place. I get it. I am now at The Athletic, and which is a national sports writing company. It was a dream come true type of opportunity. So I'm really like nerding out every time I get to write something. It from a just coming where I came from. It's pretty cool. But I originally got my start over at WGR Sports Radio 550 in Buffalo. I started off as an intern back in 2008, and then got to covering the Bills starting in 2010. Then from there, I went to TV. In 2015, worked for Channel 7 here in Buffalo, and then I switched over to writing full-time for The Athletic in 2019. So yeah, I did radio, TV, and print, I guess you could call it.
And still doing some of it and new media. I've got to ask you this, Joe, because
sure.
I had a fair amount of familiarity with what you're doing, all the things you mentioned. The Athletic is awesome, by the way. I was on there this morning. But you just mentioned nerding out. On one of your social media platforms, you mentioned something about way too many spreadsheets. You got to explain that to us.
It's a sickness. More than anything.
Okay.
I have a spreadsheet for just about everything. I log like who's practicing and who's not, so I can go back and find it and like that. For my grades that I do every single year, I have a very deep embedded formula for how I go about doing that, grading system, everything like that. It spits out playing snap percentages by game, whether it be special team, offense, defense. I have all of that just at the click of my mouse and getting into my iCloud. So yeah, that I've got something for just about everything. And I'm a big like dynasty basketball, dynasty football guy too. So like, yeah, I'm all about it. And of course life, I have life spreadsheets too.
Spreadsheets. That's awesome. You probably do some sorting and rankings.
Yeah.
I've had the privilege of speaking at some colleges where some people I used to work with are like sports administration people there. And sometimes it'll just in a Q&A, they'll ask for advice, and to whatever extent it goes into, the business side of it. I think it came about, one person said, what about Excel or those outdated things? I'm like, you've got to keep, that's never going away. I said, the league uses Excel. Maybe it's Google Sheets, but it's still a spreadsheet. Learn it, and that will serve you well. It's not going anywhere.
It's time efficiency above all else. And I love automating things and being able to throw some data in, and then it's spitting out exactly what I need. And it's easy peasy. It just takes a few minutes to do a formula.
Nice. This is what happens when Don drives the bus on the podcast. Is we get really compelling content about Excel and Google Sheets.
I had to ask.
That's Joe. That's why I kind of try to drive the bus here most of the time.
Yours.
No, we're all good. So our show is a little bit different. I don't know how familiar you are with it. We like to talk about our guests and their football journey more so than the current team. We'll get into that a little bit later on. But can you kind of take us back to growing up as a kid with the Bills, your team? Was it always going to be sports journalism? Just kind of take us back to how you got the first internship.
Yeah, they were not my team growing up. I was a fan of Brett Favre growing up, and I just grew up loving football, and I played it a bunch. That was really the first little spot where I started to develop this really strong thing toward football. But growing up, I was, talking about nerding out for my professional life. That was big time back then. Like I had this big old binder of like baseball cards, like this big, and like they were sorted by team, by position. Like I'm insane. And this was when I was like 7 or 8, and so I would like actually have like games with these cards, do paper bases, marble as the baseball, everything like that. I would keep stats. I would do the play-by-play. I would do just about everything. And then once video games became a little bit more popular, I remember before you had the opportunity to do tournaments within video games. I remember going through for like the college football game, maybe 96, and doing my own bracket for college football and playing it all out and everything like that. And it just kind of grew from there to where I knew that sports was kind of where I parked my car more than anything, to where I was just constantly looking up information. I wanted to know anything and everything, whether it was NBA draft, NFL draft. I want to know where everyone went to school, and why they were rated the way they were. Do as much research as I could. Like, I remember the Peyton and Ryan Leaf draft. ESPN did this thing. What was that? 98. Yeah. So I was 11 years old at the time. I remember ESPN did this thing where rotary phones were still a thing, or dial-up phones were still a thing, and they said, "Hey, call this hotline if you think the Colts should draft Peyton Manning or Ryan Leaf." And it was like 1 for Peyton Manning, 2 for Ryan Leaf. I must have called that number about 78 times and hit 1 for Peyton Manning.
Okay, good. You made it.
Yeah, I know, right? So I was off to a good start. But yeah, it was just little things like that continue to foster this creativity and imagination within sports. And I didn't know if it was going to be a career or anything like that. And then once I got to college, I'm like, okay, well, let's see what this communications thing is all about. Went to Florida State for a couple of years. That was really fun. And they didn't really have a great broadcast journalism program. So I emailed the program director over at WGR at the time, and he said, "Hey, if you ever come back and you want to do an internship, just let me know when you're back." And so I took that as, I need to move back to Buffalo quickly. So I graduated from now Buffalo State University and got my internship there, and started in as an intern in the winter of 2008. Got the part-time gig right out of it, and just kind of wheels up from there, thankfully.
Do you think that most of the people in your position, do they share that, like, that nerddom for sports, or is it almost a calling?
Sometimes it feels like calling. No, I think everyone's a nerd in their own way, honestly. And even if they're not like spreadsheet formula nerds like me, and me. Exactly. Then they've got their other ways. Like, some people are really great at storytelling, and that's how they really came to be in this industry. So yeah, I think it's in there for everybody. It's just everyone's got their own personal touch to it. So yeah, I was more than I've never stopped geeking out over having this job like this. This is my 14th year on the beat. I don't take it for granted for a single friggin' second. I started when I was 21 years old. It was very stupid that they gave a 21-year-old an NFLB, but I thank WGR for everything they did for me. And like Paul Hamilton, who used to cover the Bills full time, he used to do Bills and Sabres. He basically went to our boss and said, "Look, there's a lot on my plate. Joe knows football more than I do. Like, let's put Joe on the Bills." And from that point forward, I've been on the Bills beat, and Paul's one of my guys.
That's fantastic.
I remember that. I have lived here my whole life. I remember that. I remember because Paul would do both, and Paul played at Iowa State playing hockey and all. And I remember when you came on, and I'm like, "Oh, this kid's good," no, really, like right away you could kind of tell. And you were one of the things that I enjoyed listening to, even though I was hate watching the Bills in the 2010s. Your insight. We have a whole hour on getting fired, Joe. So that's an episode people can look up in the archives. But yeah, you were a highlight right away. It was very apparent, your passion and your attention to detail, which we'll get into with your long form articles on The Athletic, which I love. But Don, go ahead.
Yeah. No, it's and another shout out to Buff State. We had Mark Gahn on.
Oh yeah,
and
I love Mark.
It's now Buffalo State University, Don.
I understand. I noticed the emphasis on the word when he first said he like slowed down a little bit.
Yeah,
Buffalo State. But that's that program's just churning out a journalist. And who else did we?
We've had a number of them on, and who else went to Buffalo State University with you, Joe?
I don't know, like none of my classmates, but Matt Beauvais had gone there.
Matt Beauvais, that's who it was. Yeah,
that's my guy. By the way, he officiated my wedding. He's my guy.
He mentioned you too. I think that's good stuff.
and Howard Simon went to Buffalo State way back when.
Yeah, we had him on as well, right after he retired. So take me back to being like an intern,
Yeah.
and then getting a start on the beat. So you're like 2009, 2010, kind of before social media, or
Yeah, it pretty much synced up, which was very fortunate from my perspective, because Twitter, I created my Twitter account in 2009, and that's basically right when I started getting going in radio. And I owe a lot of Twitter going as crazy as it did, because I don't know that I would be where I am without it, honestly. But yeah, in 2008, right after they hired me part-time, I was not like covering football. I was pushing buttons as a morning show producer for a few months. Then they hired someone to be the morning show producer, and then I was kind of like a jack of all trades, where I would do Sabres games at nights because we would have the broadcast, right? So I would do like sports updates during those. I would do sports updates during Show Up in the Bulldog. Some days I would get out to the stadium, but still I was only part-time at that point. So to live, I had to have a full-time job outside of it. And I worked as a bank teller, which, yeah, it was a good year and a half, 2 years. And there came to a point where I was still a part-timer at GR. And I'm like, how much longer can I afford to wait here? And then I legit looked into some graduate programs in communications across the country to see if, like, okay, maybe if this wasn't going to happen, then what can I do? And then as soon as I started looking into it, my buddy Nick Mendola left GR, and a spot opened up, and at that point I had been doing a ton of stuff with like the NFL draft, and that was really where I started, I guess, making my way a little bit at GR. Just my overall draft content, draft knowledge. I was writing a bunch of articles. I was trying to do everything that I could, whether, opportunities to get myself on air. I wasn't pushy about it. I just did whatever they asked me to do. And yeah, it was, I was fortunate enough to where after Nick had moved on to a different place, that they decided to hire me full time. It wasn't great money, but it was a foot in the door, and that's all I ever wanted. And it just kind of went from there. So where in 2010, I was again doing some producing, and then eventually that's when the split kind of happened, to where Paul was like, "Look, you need to put this kid on the Bills because it would make our station better." And I can never thank Paul Hamilton and my old boss Andy Roth enough for doing what they did for me, and everyone at GR. Like Howard was like home away from home dad, because my parents live in Florida, even though I'm from Buffalo. And so it was really cool being able to learn with all those guys, and Jeremy White and Shope and the Bulldog. These are all just A+ people. Greg Bauk, who was the afternoon show producer for a while, they really took me under their wing, and I could not be more appreciative of everything those guys did.
Did you get any feedback, blowback, pushback from kind of the old school media at the Bills? The beat writers. I remember the room in the late '90s, and it was interesting, right? Opinionated, curmudgeon. I can think of some older guys there, but they were probably still there in 2010.
That's the first time that word's ever been used.
What was it like being a beat writer in the NFL at 21 with the other beat writers?
Yeah, it was. Everyone was really, really nice to me, honestly. And it didn't matter what syndicate, what outlet they worked for, whether it was TV or the newspaper, or at that point, online publications weren't really a thing. But everyone was really gracious toward me. I remember just talking to Mark Gaughan for just minutes upon minutes in conversation, and he was. I remember talking with him and just kind of picking his mind, because he's so good, and he's been so good for so long, and he's got such an analytical mind, and just really, really seeing how this whole thing was done, and it allowed me. I was very fortunate in the fact that it seemed like that they were giving me respect right away. I had to earn it, obviously, a little bit, but I was really fortunate that they kind of brought me in as like one of them, and because that can be tough when you get onto a new beat, and just like any job, like like you don't know how you're going to fit in socially and everything like that, and it's tough. And I'm not like a super extroverted guy, so it was especially tougher for me. So, but yeah, they were really gracious with me, and yeah, I just kind of developed relationships, friendships over time, and now it's wild. I'm kind of that old guy now where I've been on the beat for 14 years. I'm turning 37 in November, and it's like, whoa, where'd time go?
Yeah, speaking of time, you seem to have a knack for having good timing and recognizing how to capitalize on good timing and building a network. And then you mentioned earlier, as you were working your way toward this, you were working at a bank. It almost seems like a microcosm of you waiting. I can't even imagine how many times you checked your watch during a day at a bank, just waiting to, like, chomping at the bit to find out what was going on in the sports world, the Bills world, that you could get out there and report on.
You know what was cool about that job? My boss was a humongous GR listener and a sports fan, and he knew what I was trying to do. And so I would be, I would be typing out some articles while I was there,
Wow.
and he would go over to me and be like, "Oh, you balancing your drawer?" I'm like, "Yep." He knew. He didn't care.
That's great.
Super nice guy, super understanding of what I was trying to do. And yeah, there's a lot of people I'm very thankful for along the way.
Was there a moment when you became full time? I remember a moment for me when I was standing on the sideline, ironically across from Brett Favre during the national anthem.
You've said that before.
In 2000.
The preseason game, right?
And no, it was regular season game. It was
season
week
game,
2.
okay.
And I just thought to myself, I'm a 23-year-old kid standing on the sideline with a clipboard in an NFL football game. Like, how the hell did I get here?
Mm-hmm.
Did you have a moment? Is there one you can remember that you're like, was it a game, traveling with the team? Was there a moment where you're like, holy shit, like I'm here. I'm actually here.
It was probably one of the first few times I traveled, like, and walking into a new, I don't remember exactly like the stadium it was, but just the simple fact that I was being trusted to basically take the entire operation outside of home and being able to do it. So it's, maybe it was because I used to be the sideline reporter for the radio broadcasts. I did that for, I think, 2 seasons. And that was really cool, where like I would see the action unfold in front of me and see a different angle on it. So that's probably one of them. Maybe it was the year that they had that they traveled on the West Coast from San Francisco to Arizona and did the week at Arizona State, as I'm sure Don knows full well about that. So maybe that was one of those moments, but yeah, it's honest. If I'm honest, I don't mean to be hokey, but like I every single year, every single training camp is like that for me. I just get so buzzed about it, and it's the novelty of the job will, I don't think, never ever wear thin on me.
Yeah, that week was quite a memory, and we got hammered.
Yeah. Oh my God!
So I think Kaepernick played. Whatever, everyone was running all over us, and then we had to spend the whole week, which we had prepared for, move the offices there. And I don't think I've ever been so excited about just a regular season win than winning at Arizona, because
the overtime win, right?
Yeah, I think
Jairus Bird did something on that game.
Bird had a good game. Alex Carrington, all this trivia stuff, blocked a field goal attempt.
That's right.
And CJ Spiller had but it just felt like validation for, we moved out here. We had better win. But I remember you being there also. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So that's I remember from the Brett Favre thing too.
Do you have your memories traveling with the team? The time that you travel with the team. Not a lot of people do that. It's an interesting experience. The plane rides there, the plane rides back. How did you feel, like, not being a member of the organization, but still being, in that inner sanctum, for lack of a better term?
Yeah, I felt like I should not have been there, honestly. Like it wasn't like a, oh my God, they hate me sort of thing. It was like a, there's a line between journalists and the team and everything like that. And I'm very cognizant of that fact. So I was always, I tried to be extremely respectful, kept to myself. I didn't try to stick a toe out of line or anything like that. I just I was traveling there for work, and GR was still is the station of the Bills. So they had a seat on the plane, and that's how we traveled. So I just, kept to myself, did my work, and went from
You
there.
did. You conducted yourself very professionally, I recall.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes, absolutely.
Do you have a rating on like Don's organizational skills for?
Oh,
like,
he was top notch.
Top notch. Okay,
He knew who I was like immediately. I'd never met him. He was like, "Here you go, Joe." I'm like,
okay.
"Whoa."
Did you get a? Did he
I'm
get
Joe.
a,
Nice to meet you.
Did you get a per diem envelope?
Yeah, he was part of this traveling team. He sure
Yeah,
did, right?
that was part of what that is part of what GR paid for. So it all kind of clumped together. So that was like, because
do you have any
I don't think
fun?
I expensed meals or anything like
Mark
that.
Honan worked all that out with them.
Got it.
And yeah.
Do you have any funny memories of the plane? Maybe from your perspective, win, a loss, a certain player. You don't
Nothing
have to,
funny about a loss.
Well, of course, there's nothing. Well, you know what? Sometimes there can be. You told that story
You're
about
not
the
allowed
guy,
to, yeah.
about the guy on the bus, the security guard, part-time guy who just couldn't read the room after a loss and kept talking really loud about baseball.
Oh, he was a substitute
Yeah,
security guard. Just that was tough.
Yeah.
We were like, no.
Do you have any like team travel memory stories from your time?
I remember Kiko Alonso hated being on planes.
Yes.
If I recall that correctly, and he needed to be as close to the door as possible. That was I think that was the biggest thing. And there was one game that he sat in my row, because usually you have your own like row to yourself. He sat next to me because he wanted to be closer to the door.
He did. There's more to that story. I hadn't thought about that in a long time.
I don't know more to the story.
No, you're right though. What happened was Bill Hartpole, who was running the plane for us, told me, because we had players kind of grouped together by position. He's linebackers sit with linebackers to whatever extent they have this extra time to talk. And then he said, you can't put him in that seat anymore. I'm like, oh, okay, why? And he's just trust me. When I was with the Broncos, he worked for the Broncos before. We had a player. He goes, and I watched and I saw the same mannerisms. He was gritting his teeth. He was fist clenched and rocking back and forth. And he said, you can't have him anywhere near the exit door. And I'm like, okay.
Wow.
And so I asked Kiko, I said, and then I said, hey, do you want to sit anywhere else? He goes, I'd like to sit up closer. I'm like, oh my gosh, well, how do I handle this? So I talked to, and anyway, we found out that he wanted to sit up closer, not necessarily because of the door, but if anything ever happened with the plane, and he needed to get off quickly, he didn't want to have to navigate through the big players.
His anxiety was that high.
It was tough, and then it was hard because the trainers, hey, there's got to be medication for this, right? He goes, yeah, but a lot of it's not legal. He's going to get tested, and you can't do it. So we had put people around him. We put security where Joe was. We had security between him and the door. There was never anything even close to an incident. But when he signed with the Saints, I had done some business with the Saints with our startup company. Kai Harley was there, and he'd signed him. I said, hey, I'm just gonna feed you this. Do with it whatever you want, but you should know that you're probably gonna have to deal with this. I'll just give you a heads up. So I didn't mean to talk for so long. This is Joe's program. But I hadn't thought about that in a long time.
So you were next to him. Was it only one trip?
It was only one time. I think it was to New Jersey, so it was a quick one.
My most memorable plane ride was having the pleasure of going nonstop to Seattle next to Van Miller. For 5.5 hours. And I heard the same joke. God love him. Rest in peace, Van. He was great to me, but I heard the same joke about 8 times. Each of the 5 jokes that he had, he would play on repeat. But sitting next to him for 5.5 hours, and this was before iPods, and there was no headphones. Like, I had a Sony Walkman, but he didn't care. He just wanted to talk. And
Sony Walkman, that just did it.
Yeah, oh, it sure did. Yeah, he wanted to talk. So what prompted the move away from GR to Channel 7 and then now to The Athletic?
Yeah, when I was first approached by Channel 7 to make that move, I had like a certain idea in my head, like, okay, do they want me to come over and do the sports thing the way that it's always been done at TV? And because I had a little bit of reservations about that, because that wasn't really me. Like, I was more analysis driven. I was in depth, everything like that. And their general manager at the time was basically like, oh no, we don't want to change you. We just want to bring you over to us, and we want to teach you TV in the meantime. So from that point forward, I'm like, okay, I definitely get that vision, and I'm all about self-improvement, evolution, everything like that, and I wanted to push myself out of my comfort zone a little bit. And so by signing up with them, I continue to do all my written work, and that was so vital to me. I made sure, like, okay, if I go here, the writing is not going to slip. Like, that is that is where people have starting to follow me a little bit. That's where they're starting to trust me. And if I can do the on-air component and learn how to be on TV in the meantime, that's super cool. I had to learn how to put on makeup, which was weird. So that was like, I actually have a funny story. Like they sent me to a store, or one of my coworkers sent me to the store to purchase my makeup. And
A little hazing there.
I mean, it's where you go. So I went to the Mac counter at the Walden Galleria, which is where some of my coworkers go, and they upsold the hell out of me. I had no idea what I was doing. I'm like, sure, just do it. I'm sure that. And even like I looked on my wife's bathroom counter, and like they sold me like setting spray, and she still has it. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe they upsold me on setting spray. Anyway, that
tax deductible, right?
Sure. Yeah. So that transition to TV was really cool, because not only did I learned a new medium, but I also was able to develop myself even further as a writer and do things the way, do things in the similar way that I did at GR. I got to learn how to tell stories from a television standpoint. I learned how to do sportscasts on TV. I learned how to use a camera. I learned so many different elements, and that's where I actually started my podcast. It was those years, and it's still going today. So
what's the name of it for people listening?
Now it's called the Buffalo Beat. It is under the athletics umbrella. So it is called the Buffalo Beat, and I've been doing it since 2015 or 2016. Wow,
that's early. That's early for a podcast. Good for you.
Yeah, I had a vision. I thought like, okay, this is going to be the way, because I wanted to, replicate the radio aspect of it, because that's how people knew me too. So I just tried it out.
So then you make the decision. The Athletic is founded, comes aboard. Had to be some trepidation, right? Like national company, but I didn't really know much about it at first. I love it. I think it's amazing, the long form writing, but it was not traditional, right? Like, I mean, you probably had a real safe spot at Channel 7, and what made you take that risk?
Yeah, and it was a very tough decision, because like they named me a sports director at Channel 7 after a year of being there, which was, I couldn't believe that they wanted me to do that, let alone anything. But I was extremely humbled when they asked me to do that. But the Athletic, they recruited me. The person that called me is the longtime editor-in-chief of Sports Illustrated. So totally geeked out over that. Yeah. And he was the chief operator of content. I forget his exact title at the time. But, just like, I remember taking that phone call, talking for like 40 to 45 minutes. And I had known about the Athletic and that they were starting to get into individual cities. And I'm like, that would be very interesting. That would be the only type of job that I would leave where I'm at to go do. But it had to be the right thing. Like I very much loved every single second at Channel 7. It's just this whole notion of me, this little dude who's playing with baseball cards and marbles, just thinking about what I might be, and then having like a national sports writing company, want me, not even just like, hey, apply for this job, but they like targeted me. And it was a risk for sure, because, at that point it was just a startup. They had been going for about 3 years to that point, where they started in individual markets, started mostly with hockey, but I loved the vision. I loved where they were going with their place in the media landscape. I thought everything they were doing was very smart. And, it was just like I did with television, taking a risk, doing something different. Like now I would have an editor for the first time in my career. I don't know if I'm a good writer. I don't know if I'm still a good writer. Just because I work for the Athletic, I have no idea if I'm a good writer. Most days I feel like I'm not. But that said, I wanted to push myself, and I always think about it like, okay, if I look back on my career, am I going to regret not taking that chance? And the answer was a resounding yes. And so I was extremely appreciative. Like, I still do stuff for Channel 7. Like I said, Matt Bove is my guy. I still do a Monday show every single week during the season with them. I pop on with Bove as much as they want me. But I'm extremely happy to be where I am, and I love writing and nerding out and writing in depth. But like my piece yesterday that I posted about, like, under the radar offensive lineman you need to know. Like, Buffalo is so weird that they love that stuff, but they do. And that's why I think Buffalo is like a top 5 football market, even though it's market, whatever, 51, 52, 53.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's great to hear. It's that you've earned it and you waited your time and
Thanks.
and took the chance. So what does a game day look like for you in 2023, working at the Athletic and everything else you're doing?
Yeah, so I'll just take you through what I did on Saturday. I live pretty close, so I try to get there before they close Abbott. So they close at about 5 hours before kickoff, and so I got in around like 7:45. I get all my spreadsheets in order to where, because again, psycho. I take live snap counts because I want to know who's on the field, when, with who, at all times. I want to know substitution packages. I want to know each piece of information that you are willing to show out there. I want to know about it. Like, that's just how I operate more than anything. And then a lot of my analysis kind of builds off that, because if you can sense trends within that, then you can start to see, okay, maybe this guy is earmarked for a certain role, whereas okay, maybe someone that you thought higher of, maybe they're not as in high of standing within the organization based on what they're trying to do. So there's it's like a puzzle for me, and I love puzzles. But other than that, on game days, usually during the regular season, I'll do a video on Twitter or X or whatever the heck it's called. First thing as I get there, just a little 2-minute, 20-second talk about what I'm thinking about, post a link of like a little preview thing that I've done. And then from there, it's just kind of like getting my ducks in a row, making sure all my spreadsheets are good, ready to go, to where I'm entering data on the fly that I'm good there. I get my notebook ready. I have chicken scratch, as you can see, but it's a constant flow. And
you have a spotter?
I don't.
No. Wow. Good for you. That's tough.
I do it all on the fly. Like, it helps because the current Bills regime under McDermott, they're pretty predictable with their substitution patterns, just based on what groupings will go in from within a series and which ones will stay the same. And so that's why I can kind of get a leg up on it. And, for like the offensive line or something, I'll just jot that down shorthand rather than entering it in my spreadsheet. And then during commercial, I will enter it in and make sure it's fully up to date.
Do you do it for special teams too?
During the regular season, I do.
Good for you. That's tough. That's tough work. So how about what is it like to travel on the road but not be a part of the flagship station? I think people would be interested. Like, how do you guys get to the stadium in Kansas City or wherever? What does that weekend look like for you, a road game?
It's always an adventure. But I have gotten a lot of rewards programs. I have a lot of points through Marriott these days, which is nice. But yeah, it's my usual operating procedure is I like to fly in pretty late in the night before, and then wake up first thing in the morning, head to the stadium early, just like I do at home, and then try and then take the first flight out, so that way I don't miss anything on Monday, that I don't miss anything like availability or anything like that. But the traveling is definitely can wear on you after a while, just because it's like, okay, when you fly on a charter, that's great because it's like, oh, we're just gonna be in the air for whatever 50 minutes from Newark. Sure, whatever. I'll be home and in my bed at home by like 8 o'clock or something. But when you're traveling regularly, you're at the mercy of delays, and you have to set up rental cars if you do it. Sometimes you do rideshare. It's never the same formula, and every place has their own thing that you have to get used to. Like, for instance, I know I know you guys probably know this, but the key to flying into when the Bills play the Patriots, to me, is going to Providence.
Providence. Yeah.
Providence is the way. I tried to tell all of my beat partners, they refuse, and they still go to Logan. I'm like, I'm telling you, Providence is like a Buffalo Airport light. It is incredible, and you can get to the stadium so easily. But yeah, it's definitely more challenging, a lot more time away from home, but yeah, still very much worth it.
So before we let you go here, Joe, you've been real generous with your time. Don and I do something called the 2-minute warning, where we try to ask you 10 kind of off the wall, off the beat questions to let people just see maybe a different side of your personality before we end the interview. So
Go with the first one, Josh.
Oh, sure. All right. So where is the most interesting place to watch a Bills game? So I guess you get for someone like you, what's your favorite road city?
Ooh, my favorite road city is probably Green Bay, just because of the history behind it. Like, when I've only gone there to Lambeau once, and I got there even earlier than I usually do, and I gave myself a self-guided tour.
Beautiful.
In and around Lambeau, and I went to every little nook and cranny in that stadium.
Have you had the opportunity? Have you been able to meet Brett Favre?
No, but I interviewed him a couple times.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. 3 people dead or alive you'd want to have dinner with. I think I know one.
Well, maybe not these days.
Yeah, right. That's fair.
I'd probably throw like Taylor Swift in there, just because I think she's awesome the way she's revolutionized music. Me and my wife love her. We're going to see her in Toronto next year.
Next year.
Shouldn't your wife be one of these 3 people if Taylor Swift's going to be there?
She would be there regardless. She would force her way in.
That's soon, right?
Who else? This is a tough one. I rarely think about this stuff. Maybe Greg Popovich.
Nice.
Really respect him and like everything he stands for, and just like an incredible mind. Just want to pick his brain. And I think I probably got to do somebody nerdy, right? Wow, this I did not expect this.
It's tough to get the TV guy rattled. You know, this is good.
No, it's just there's just so many different different avenues. Wow, I might have to think about this further, because
we'll come back to it.
It'll come to me.
All right, so you're entering an arena. You're the big deal. You're the Taylor Swift star. What's your entrance song?
Oh God. Oh. Gosh. We'll go with No Diggity by Blackstreet.
Beautiful.
Let's go.
All right. The best concert you've ever seen, Joe?
Lady Gaga in Cleveland. Went there with my wife. We had floor seats. Amazing show.
Hopefully there's no contractual obligations here. What's your favorite Buffalo restaurant, and what do you get there?
No contractual obligations. My wife and I love the Grange in Hamburg. It's one of our favorite spots. Really love Griffin Gastropub in East Aurora. That's a cool one. So yeah, probably one of those two.
Okay. Your favorite cartoon growing up?
Wasn't a big cartoon guy, but I was big into Power Rangers.
You're too busy with spreadsheets when you're 9.
Dude, I was too busy on like video games and creating my own friggin' tournaments. It was a thing.
I was always convinced. So I'm 10 years older than you. I would play seasons in Madden 90, 91, 92, and I was always convinced that if I could win the Super Bowl with the Bills, that would mean that the Bills were going to finally win the Super Bowl that year. So I was role playing, the 1992 Bills, and more times than not, I would end up losing in the Super Bowl for some reason. Is there a popular food that you hate?
No. I used to be super picky growing up, and I wouldn't eat a ton, but I have been trying to push myself with, and I will order crazy things on the menu just to do it.
All right.
So, yeah. No, the answer is no.
Okay. Who is the most annoying fan base in the NFL?
Well, the thing is, I don't really deal with them all that much. I know know people would generally say like the Patriots or the Jets or something. So I guess I'll just go with like
The
one of those
Cowboys.
two.
The Cowboys seems to be a favorite of the former players we've had on, but then the media guys, it's almost always Patriots or Jets, and the Dolphins are slowly climbing here.
Yeah, somebody said the Rams for a different reason, that they were so frustrated that they couldn't get excited about even a Super Bowl.
That was an interesting.
Well, see, I've got some family members that are not from here that love the Cowboys, so I can never do that to them.
Oh, you can't do that. I guess that's right.
No.
Who's the most interesting person who you've met through being a part of the media?
Ryan Fitzpatrick. Full stop. That dude, I could not even put into words what that guy is. He's ridiculous.
That was your first year. Your first year covering the team, 2010. That was your first year as a starter.
That was 0-8 to 4-12 to missing out on Cam Newton by that much.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's right. And he had that Baltimore game that he just tore it up. And who is this guy?
Yeah, wasn't that the year that in overtime where I think was it Chris Gregg that got held up.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that play? And they ripped the ball out because he wouldn't go down?
That's right. And Ray Lewis, I think, and they called it a fumble. Yeah. You were that's okay. You were
I love Don grinding out these 3-9 games from November of 2011 and how everything would have changed if we just would have won that one.
Not that year. Joe explained how it would have changed it a different way with
Cam. Buddy loved Cam. I know that for a fact.
Yeah. That's right. So your top 3 favorite sports movies?
Hoosiers is up there. I actually played basketball at the Hoosiers gym at one of the combines we went to. It was bucket list stuff. I went with Tim Graham, Matthew Fairburn, Tyler Dunn, and one of Matthew Fairburn's buddies from Mizzou who was covering the NFL for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution at the time.
That's awesome.
So cool. I dunked on the Hoosiers gym rim.
Beautiful.
How
many people can fit in that gym?
Not a lot. And what's interesting, I actually found this out when I was there. They still hold like an Indiana State All-Star game at that place. And it's just like this little place right in the middle of a neighborhood. Like it's just so nondescript. You walk in, they're like, is this it? And then you walk in and it's like, oh, this is it. Wow. This is dope. So yeah, Hoosiers is up there. Little Giants was great growing up. Let's see. Nothing's coming to me right now.
Two's plenty. Couple more here. Would anything change in your job if and when the Bills win the Super Bowl?
I don't think so. I think the fervor would just be as strong for them to repeat, and people would, I think, get even a little bit more up in arms than they do now. Once teams get good, that's like the natural progression, right? Because it went from, oh my God, just make it to the playoffs. And then like I ran a fan survey this past summer, and it was like, if they don't make it past the divisional round, people are not going to be satisfied. And so it's just kind of this natural progression. Thus, this is sports.
All right. You went off the board for that one. So are we going number 10?
Number 9.
Nope. Number 9. Can you drive a stick shift?
I cannot. No. That's not in my skill set. I think I spend a little bit too much time on my computer on spreadsheets.
All right, this is the last question here. We're batting about 40-60 on this one. Can you sing us 10 seconds of the Buffalo State University fight song?
Oh my God, no! I didn't even know they had one.
I don't know if they do either. We're the former players, obviously, with their alma maters. Some of them know it but refuse. Other ones don't remember it, and then every once in a while we'll get somebody who's able to belt out some bars.
We just dropped to 38-62.
What did
benefit of a spreadsheet?
What did Matt Beauvais do?
He declined.
Did he know it though?
You might have to
go back to the tape, I think, on that one.
Yeah, we're gonna have to. On If the Walls Could Talk in Buffalo Twitter feed, I'm gonna have to try to find the Buffalo State University fight song.
Yeah,
maybe send it to people.
If you got Beauvais to sing it, he might have hit his falsetto voice, which is oh yeah,
wow,
oh yeah.
That's the insight that you're going to only get here.
Beauvais feeling it when he hits the falsetto.
That's amazing. It's really cool that you guys get to travel together and have those experiences. Yeah. Like that's a bond, that people just would love to have.
Oh yeah, and a guy like Matt, I kind of look at him in the same way as some people looked at me when I was first getting my start in the industry. Like, he was a news reporter when I first got to Channel 7, and we worked together my first day at Channel 7, and people always paid it forward with me, and I could see right away that he was talented, and like, as soon as they made me sports director, my first thing was like, hey, how about Matt Beauvais, bringing him over to sports? And he's friend first, obviously, but he's really damn talented and really good at what he does. He understands the market like so well. And so, yeah, it was kind of cool being able to see him grow a lot in the same way I think some other people did for me when I was a younger guy. So it's been really cool to watch.
Great. It's easy to see why you work so well together. And Joe, this has been great learning about your career. I knew bits and pieces, but the way you strung it all together, really fascinating. And hope you have a great season. And love to stay in contact with you.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me, guys. This has been great.
Sure. We'd love to do it again, maybe during the season, maybe talk a little bit of current team. And go from there.
I'm in.
All right. Thanks a lot,
Thanks,
Joe.
Joe.
Have a good day.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
All right.